before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable true stories like this, because what happened next will leave you speechless. I never thought a single conversation could change everything I believed about my marriage. My name is Mark, and my wife, Jessica, and I had been together for 5 years. We had built a life I thought was solid, stable, and predictable. But that evening, everything shifted. It started like any other night. Jessica was unusually quiet while I was finishing dinner. She had this hesitant look in her eyes, one that immediately put me on edge. "Mark," she said, hesitating, "there's something I need to ask you." I smiled, thinking it was something trivial, maybe a favor or a small request. But her tone carried weight, a seriousness I hadn't heard before. "Sure, Jess. What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She took a deep breath and looked down at her hands. I want you to let me go out with him," she said, almost whispering. I froze. I didn't understand. "Him?" I echoed, my heart skipping a beat. "Who are you talking about?" She looked me in the eyes and said, "You know, Alex, my ex." Everything in me recoiled. My mind raced. Alex was her college boyfriend. The one she never really spoke about much. The one she occasionally mentioned in passing. And now she was asking me to let him come back into our lives, even if just for a short time. I felt anger rising first, sharp and burning. Then confusion. Then a deep, heavy dread. "Why?" I asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Jessica hesitated, looking torn. I need closure. I can't move forward completely unless I know there's nothing left between us. "Please, Mark, I'm asking you." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand an explanation, but I didn't. I just sat there, trying to process what I was hearing. My wife, my partner for 5 years, was asking me to essentially give permission for her to see another man. I looked at her and tried to understand. Was this about trust? Was this about her seeking something she couldn't find with me? Or was it about testing me? The room seemed to shrink around us, the quiet stretching into an unbearable tension. I remember the nights we had shared, the plans we had made, the promises we had kept. Was it all going to be jeopardized by a single request? And yet, I realized something important. This wasn't just a casual question. It was a moment of truth, a moment where I had to decide if our marriage could survive the unexpected, the shocking, the unimaginable. For a long time, I didn't speak. I just looked at her. Jessica, waiting for my reaction, her eyes searching mine for understanding or acceptance. I could see the vulnerability in her, the fear that I would say no. And I could see something else, an honesty I had rarely seen before, raw and unfiltered. Finally, I spoke. "Jess, I need to understand why this matters to you. Not just a request, but what it means for us. What are you trying to prove?" She swallowed hard, looking down again. "I don't want anything to ruin us, Mark. I need to be sure. I need to know I'm not holding on to the past. That's all." Her words hit me harder than anything else, because deep down I understood. Everyone has a past. Everyone has memories. And perhaps this was her way of dealing with hers. But it didn't make the request any easier to accept. I leaned back in my chair, trying to steady my thoughts. The air between us felt heavy, almost suffocating. I had to make a decision, but I also knew I couldn't react impulsively. Jessica's request was unlike anything I had ever faced. It wasn't just unusual. It was completely outside the bounds of any marriage I had known. I asked her to sit down. "Okay, Jess, let's talk about this. If we're even considering it, I need to know everything. No half-truths, no excuses. You tell me why this is so important, and then we figure out if this is even possible without destroying us." She nodded, her fingers twisting nervously. "Mark, I love you. I've never stopped. But Alex, he was a big part of my life. And sometimes I feel like I never got the closure I needed. I don't want him back in my life permanently. I just need one meeting, one conversation, one chance to end things completely so that I can move forward fully with you." I could see the sincerity in her eyes. This wasn't manipulation. It was fear and uncertainty wrapped up in a desperate request. But even understanding her feelings didn't make it easy. My mind was spinning with scenarios, imagining the worst-case possibilities. "Jess," I said, keeping my voice calm, "you need to know that if I agree to this, things could change. Permanently. You're asking me to trust that this will only be a conversation, but there's no guarantee that emotions won't resurface. That's a huge risk. Are you ready for that?" She swallowed hard and nodded. "I am. I promise, Mark. This isn't about him. This is about us." I took a deep breath, weighing my options. On one hand, I could refuse outright and risk creating resentment, maybe even secrecy. On the other hand, agreeing could either strengthen our trust or shatter it completely. I decided to take a chance, but carefully. "Okay," I said finally, "we'll do this, but on my terms. You meet him once in a public place, with me aware of everything. No surprises, no hidden agendas. And after that, we move forward together. Agreed?" Jessica's relief was palpable. She smiled, a mixture of gratitude and nervous anticipation. "Agreed? Thank you, Mark. You have no idea what this means to me." The next few days were tense. I kept a close watch on her, not out of distrust, but because I knew how volatile emotions could be in situations like this. We planned the meeting meticulously. Time, place, and even the seating arrangement were carefully considered. Every detail mattered. Finally, the day arrived. We went to a quiet cafe downtown, one where we knew few people would recognize us. Alex was already there when we walked in. My first impression, confident, casual, but unaware of the storm he was about to walk into. Jessica greeted him politely, her hands trembling slightly. I stayed a step behind, observing, noting every reaction, every micro-expression. Alex didn't seem to notice my presence at first, too caught up in catching up with Jessica. But when he finally looked up and saw me, his smile faltered slightly. There was an unspoken understanding in that moment. This wasn't the same Jessica he had left behind. This was her life now, and I was standing firmly in it. The conversation began politely, cautiously. Alex seemed eager to reminisce, to revisit old memories. Jessica kept steering the discussion toward closure, subtly redirecting when nostalgia threatened to take over. And I watched silently, feeling a strange mix of pride, protectiveness, and anxiety. As the conversation progressed, it became clear that Jessica was in control. She spoke calmly, directly, and with a resolve I hadn't seen before. Alex tried to charm her with old stories and subtle compliments, but she didn't flinch. Every word, every glance, every small gesture was deliberate. I could feel the shift. The dynamic had changed. She was no longer the girl who once let him hold power over her emotions. Alex finally leaned back, a little deflated, and said, "I guess I always thought we'd end up together, you know? I didn't expect this." Jessica's voice was steady, almost gentle yet firm. "That chapter is over, Alex. I needed closure, and now I have it. My life is here with Mark. Everything else is behind me." I could see Alex processing this, realizing that he no longer held any influence over her. I felt a mix of relief and admiration. Relief because the threat of the past disrupting our marriage was fading, and admiration because Jessica had handled the situation with such clarity and strength. The meeting ended politely. We walked out together, side by side. I could feel her hand brushing mine subtly, a silent reassurance. Once we were outside, away from prying eyes, Jessica turned to me, her eyes wide with gratitude. "Mark, thank you for trusting me," she whispered. I smiled, my heart swelling with a mixture of pride and love. "I didn't just trust you, Jess. I trusted us. And now we move forward. Together." That evening, we sat in our living room, the tension of the past days slowly melting away. We didn't need to talk about the meeting itself anymore. Its purpose had been fulfilled. What mattered was the understanding that had been reinforced. Trust, communication, and respect. These were the foundations that always held us together, and now they felt even stronger. Later that night, as I watched her fall asleep, I realized something important. Marriages aren't just built on love. They're built on facing challenges, confronting uncomfortable truths, and choosing each other again, even when it's hard. Jessica's shocking requests have been a test, a moment of vulnerability, and a chance for us to reaffirm our bond. I thought back to the moment she first made the request. My instinct had been fear and anger, but instead, I had listened, evaluated, and decided to act with patience and clarity. That choice had made all the difference. It reminded me that sometimes the most shocking moments in life are also the ones that shape us the most. By the time the night ended, I knew our marriage had entered a new chapter. Not one without challenges, but one fortified by understanding and trust. Jessica rested her head against my shoulder, and I held her close. The past had no power over us anymore. It was a lesson I would never forget. Love is tested not by comfort, but by the storms you weather together. And as I turned off the lights and watched her sleep, I smiled quietly to myself, knowing that whatever came next, we could face it together.